Wait, yes, my name is Rachel. But before I tell you this story, let me ask you something. Have you ever stepped into a place that felt both strange and familiar? Like the walls remembered something, but not your memories. Like an echo that no longer sounded like your voice. What I'm about to share isn't just about a sleepwalking episode. It's about one night, one sleep, that changed everything. And I need to warn you, not everyone wakes up the same after something like this. That night began like any other. The wind in Newport was stronger than usual, but the sounds brushing against my window were oddly comforting. Like a lullaby I'd forgotten. As always, I lit my lavender incense and turned on my soft amber aromatherapy lamp. Falling asleep was a ritual for me, a quiet ceremony. Maybe to feel safe, or maybe something deeper was guiding me without my knowing. It was 10:41 p.m. My thoughts were loud, but my body was heavy. The last thing I remember was placing my head on the pillow, whispering to myself, tonight I'm just going to rest. I'm not going anywhere. But the thing is, I'm a sleepwalker, and willpower doesn't always belong to me. I don't know if you understand what sleepwalking really feels like. We're always tired, always wandering. I wonder, when the body is drained, does the soul drift somewhere else? Do we become ghosts of ourselves? Our bodies move, but we're not really there. We're aware, but not conscious. At least, not in the usual way. Let me tell you what happened. Let's walk through it together. When I woke up, I hadn't really woken up, but my body was moving. I felt cold, my feet were bare. I was outside. Wet leaves cracked beneath me. The air was thick. The night darker than usual, but somehow I could see. Something was pulling me forward. I didn't look left or right. I just walked, drawn by a voice I couldn't hear, but could feel. Have you ever walked without knowing why? As if your legs no longer belonged to you? Then I saw it. A house hidden between the trees. I froze. It looked familiar, but it couldn't be. It was Eleanor House, my great-aunt's old home, a place I visited once as a child, before it was abandoned. The wood was rotting, the windows shattered, but it stood like it had been waiting. I walked up the steps. They creaked beneath me. The door was slightly open, as if it had expected me. I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and dampness. Old furniture lay untouched, but beneath it all, I smelled lavender, my incense. In the center of the living room stood an old couch, covered in dust, but slightly sunken, like someone had just been sitting there. On the walls were paintings, warped frames, a portrait of my aunt in her youth. But something was off. Every time I looked at her, her eyes seemed to move. I felt watched. Have you ever felt completely alone, but still not alone at all? Then I heard a sigh. It sounded like me, but it wasn't. It felt like someone else was breathing for me. A creak echoed from upstairs, a door opening. My legs started to move, but my mind resisted. It was like I had two bodies, one climbing the stairs, the other screaming not to. Each wooden step groaned under my feet, as if the house itself remembered every step I took. At the top, a hallway. At the end, a door, barely open, a faint glow spilling through. Can a dream know more than you do? The house felt different, dimensional, like I wasn't in the house anymore, but somewhere beyond it. Even the staircase looked different, intricately built, like something from Silas, the master carpenter in California. They said he was accused of something he didn't do. But that's a story for another time. I opened the door. Inside, a woman was lying in bed, her back to me, long black hair falling down one side. She felt familiar. Too familiar. Then she turned, and I saw her face. It was me, but worn, empty. Her eyes were hollow and full of tears. She stared at me. "You left," she said, "but I stayed. I tried to run, to scream, but I couldn't move." She stood up, walked toward me. Her steps made no sound. She reached out, took my hands in hers and whispered, "Now you stay. I'll go." My eyes opened. I was in bed. The incense was still burning, but there were cobwebs on the ceiling. And my room wasn't quite my room. Familiar, but wrong. It was like I'd looked too closely, and now something else was looking back. I stood up, looked out the window. I was in the garden of Eleanor House. What if the life you think you're awake in is just someone else's dream? Since that night, nothing's been the same. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see her eyes. Not mine, and some nights, I sleepwalk back to that house. The same path, the same stairs, the same door. My sleepwalking is no longer random. If you've had strange dreams, if you've ever found yourself walking toward a place without knowing why, if you ever see that house, please, don't go past the stairs. Don't open the door. Don't make the mistake I did. And if you've been through something like this, knowing you're not alone might be your only way out. When I opened my eyes, dawn hadn't yet arrived. Pale moonlight spilled across the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The blanket covering me felt heavier than it should, like it was pressing down on my soul instead of my body. I was exhausted, but I didn't know why, and then I felt it. I had walked again that night. The notebook I kept under my pillow had moved. My fingers trembled as I flipped it open. And there it was. In my own handwriting. The old house. I was there again. But the thing is, I've never been to that house. At least, I don't think I have. A few days later, I found myself staring at that house on Google Maps. Not on purpose, just drifting. My coffee had gone cold while I sat frozen in front of the screen. White paint peeling from the walls, a sagging roof, blackened windows, as if something had burned inside long ago. And still, something deep inside me whispered that I knew this place. Not from photos. From inside, I remembered cracked floor tiles in the kitchen, a broken banister on the stairs, and on the far left wall upstairs, an old painting. How could I know that? Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were asleep, even while you were awake? Like your body was here, but your soul was somewhere else? As if something outside of you was in control, pulling the strings while you simply watched? That's how I feel every single night. When I wake up, my feet are covered in soil. My hands smell faintly of rust. Sometimes I find dried lavender tucked into the pocket of my nightgown. That night, I don't even remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes, I was there, sitting on a dusty couch in a living room I shouldn't have known. Moonlight poured through shattered windows. The silence, thick and old, but I wasn't alone. From the attic, I heard breathing, not loud, just steady. And strangely, it didn't scare me. It felt like my breath. I looked down and saw a notebook under my arm. The cover was cracked, its pages yellowed with time. I opened it. The handwriting inside looked like mine. Sarah is 3 years old. She cries a lot, and this house is no longer good for us. Sarah? Who was Sarah? My name is Emily. But as I turned the pages, something sharp twisted inside me. A pressure, a voice, a child crying, a woman whispering, "We have to leave this house." The next morning, I made a decision. If that house was real, if it truly existed, then I had to see it for myself. I grabbed my keys, got in the car. My heart repeated one sentence the entire time. I won't find peace until I go there. I shifted into drive, turned on the music, fastened my seatbelt, and said out loud, "This house will either save me or destroy me." Even if I found nothing, I told myself, at least I'd breathe some fresh country air. And if you don't like country air, well, that's on you. But as the GPS led me closer, the pictures in my head started to match exactly. A white house tucked between the trees. There it was. That house. The door was open. The floor creaked under my steps. Not in warning, but in recognition. Time paused inside. Dust floated in the air like it had been waiting years to be disturbed. The staircase stood just as I'd remembered, and deep inside, a voice said, "Don't go upstairs." But my feet moved anyway. To the right, a small room on the floor. A baby blanket, embroidered on it, Sarah. Then I heard it. Laughter. A child's laugh, but it wasn't new. It sounded like it came from long ago, as if it was replaying itself. Now let me ask you something. If you had heard that sound, would you have walked away? Or would you have followed it, like I did? Here's the truth. I was born in that house. I lived there. And one night, my mother left me there. Years later, after I was adopted, I would relive that night in my sleep, over and over again. That's what my sleepwalking is, a memory, an echo of the night I was left behind, and my return to that house. Maybe it's because I never truly left. So if you hear voices from the past, if a place pulls you back again and again, don't ignore it. Tell me, is there an abandoned house in your heart too? Or worse, has your heart been abandoned by someone you trusted? The ones I loved most left me, even the ones who swore they never would. Now I know, I was never in their hearts to begin with. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So remember this, sleepwalking isn't always about movement. Sometimes it's about memory. Sometimes it's how the soul tries to return. Even when your eyes are open, you might still be dreaming. And if one day a house calls you back, listen closely. Maybe, just maybe, something is still waiting for you there. My name is Evelyn, and even as I share this with you, I still can't quite tell what was a dream and what was real. But one thing I do know, that house still calls to me. Not from somewhere far away, but from deep within, like a whisper echoing through my bones. Sometimes when I wake up, my feet are covered in dirt. Sometimes mud. And sometimes the door to that house is open. It's the stone house on the edge of town. No one has touched it in years, the last thing left from my childhood. My mother abandoned it after my father died. She told me, never go back. But my dreams, they keep pulling me there. That night, I parked at the edge of the forest. The sky had already grown dark. Moonlight trickled through the pines, and the mist drifted low, like a veil across the ground. And just like that, I was there again, not even sure how I'd gotten there. But somehow, glad. Because fog and pine forests have always given me peace. People talk about finding comfort in open plains, but not me. I find peace in lonely, quiet forests, especially when the altitude is high The air is cool, and there's a fire brewing beside a tent. That's the kind of silence I understand. Have you ever woken up in the morning and realized you were in a completely different place, or walked in your sleep to a house no one else lives in? The door was open, just like in my dreams. Its wooden hinges groaned in the breeze, rusted from years of weather and memory. When I stepped inside, I forgot how to breathe. Nothing had changed. The broken photo frame was still on the wall, my father's portrait inside, staring at me beneath a layer of dust. Glass crunched under my shoes. The smell and that musty scent from my childhood was still there. I knew I shouldn't be there, but part of me didn't want to leave. It wasn't fear I felt, more like belonging, as if I wasn't dreaming of the house, but the house had been dreaming of me. The old wooden staircase to the second floor was still standing. Each step creaked with memory. I counted them like I used to, touching the cracks in the walls as I climbed. The middle step always groaned when I was a child. It did again. But this time, it felt like someone else had heard it too. Upstairs, all the doors were closed, except the one on the right. That had been my room. I opened it, and there it was. My old teddy bear, still sitting at the edge of the bed. One eye missing, the other staring right at me. But hadn't we thrown that bear away? I told myself maybe it was just a dream. One of those dreams so vivid, as you wake up believing it happened. Maybe I only dreamed of tossing it out. And now here it was again. I laughed a little. I mean, talking to yourself like that. They say it's a sign, right? I found a notebook under the bed. On the cover, Evelyn, 1999. I opened it. The first page said, "Today, my father pushed me down the stairs." My blood ran cold. I don't remember writing it, but the handwriting was mine. Every page that looked untouched by time. Fresh. Like they'd been written yesterday. A breeze came through. The window was open. I hadn't opened it. Do you ever feel that when something clearly belongs to you, but you remember nothing about it? Maybe I'm not the only one. There were no clocks, no signal on my phone, and the sun hadn't risen yet. What time was it? How long had I been here? Then I heard it, the slow ticking of a clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. But I couldn't tell where it came from. And then a woman's voice. She whispered my name, Evelyn. You're back again. In that moment, something broke inside me. It was like a memory rising from the walls, not just in my mind, but in my chest, my stomach, my whole being. A strange mixture of exhaustion and peace washed over me. I couldn't tell if it was real or if the house was doing something to me. Or maybe it wasn't the house at all. Maybe it was me. My own mind playing tricks. They say we only use a fraction of our brains. What if it's that unused part that's dreaming? When I stepped outside, it had started to rain. But the sky was cloudless. Still, I was soaked within seconds. I looked down. My footprints were there in the mud. But so was someone else's, larger, deeper. Someone or something had been there while I slept. The next thing I knew, I was sitting on the old couch in the basement. A blanket wrapped around me. In my hands, the teddy bear. Had I woken up? Or was I still asleep? There was a mirror on the wall. I looked at my reflection, but it wasn't looking back at me. It was staring over my shoulder, as if someone was behind me. I turned. No one. Only the notebook, the moon, and me. I left the house. Dawn was just beginning to break, the sky turning a pale shade of yellow and grey. I got into my car, but the key wasn't there. Instead, something was in my hand. A note. "You'll come back again." It wasn't a suggestion. It felt like a command. And to be honest, I don't like being told what to do. But here's the thing. Even if I wanted to resist, I don't think I could. What about you? Do you return to the same place in your dreams? What if that place knows you better than you know yourself? I don't know if this story is true, but I do know this. Sometimes sleepwalking isn't just about losing control of your body. It's about losing hold of your soul. And sometimes, the most abandoned places are waiting for you. Thank you for listening. If you've ever had an experience like this, share it in the comments. Maybe I'm not alone.